made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf here on the We Made This podcast network. Except today, there's no chat about Red Dwarf. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host, and this is the second of our three specials, filler, whatever you want to call it, where two of our hosts, well, me and one of our other hosts, have a chat about a kids' telly show. These come from my old podcast, Right in the Childhood. And I had three of our hosts as guests on that podcast. In this episode, I have a chat with Carl about Samurai Pizza Cats. We're doing this while we're still recording our Series 7 coverage, and we didn't want you to have a month with nothing to listen to. So we hope you enjoy these tenuous links. Basically, it's just the hosts, but we hope you enjoy them anyway. And here's me and Carl having a Samurai Pizza Chat. Hello and welcome to Right in the Childhood, the podcast about children's TV, here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host, and once a month I talk about happy memories from someone else's childhood that I may or may not share, but it's an excuse to watch some kids' TV, even though I'm 43. My guest this month is Carl Bryan. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm really well. It's good to speak to you. I mean, I know we chat elsewhere on the network, but it's nice to have you as a guest on Right in the Childhood.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. I enjoy Right in the Childhood.
Tell everybody what we are going to be watching today. Your pick.
Well, it is one that's very, very big from my formative years, and that is Samurai Pizza Cats.
Samurai Pizza Cats. Brilliant. So before we have a chat about Samurai Pizza Cats, tell everyone a little bit about who you are and your creative outlets and stuff.
Well, I am one of your co-hosts on Shipwrecked and Comatose, the Red Dwarf podcast, here on the We Made This podcast network.
On the We Made This podcast network?
That's right, on the We Made This podcast network.
The We Made This podcast network.
And also, I did host for a while a podcast called Cerebral Jukebox, which was about people choosing songs that got stuck in their head, which is also still available to watch. And I tend to turn up on a lot of different podcasts on the network and kind of beyond the network as well. I'm kind of a guest for hire, but I will be doing my own stuff again soon, hopefully. Now I've got a bit more time on my hands. There will be some more podcasty type things on the way from myself.
Brilliant. I mean, I am quite guilty of being on many podcasts myself, so I can definitely empathise with the guest thing. The guest thing is always nice because you don't have to do the editing.
Oh, it's lovely. And then you can just go on your pod chaser and go, I was on this, I was on this, I was on this. And it makes it look like you've got a real hefty body of work. It's like, all I did was talk about stuff. It's great.
Yeah, that's why this is monthly now, because editing. Right, Samurai Pizza Cats. What is your memory of Samurai Pizza Cats, and why did you pick this out of any kids' telly show that you could have picked?
For me, this show stirs up a lot of memories of Saturday mornings. And with Saturday mornings would come, especially in the UK, the best way to describe the Saturday morning magazine show. So
yes,
in terms of your SMTV Lives or Going Live, Live and Kicking. But the one that always sticks out in my brain for me was Motormouth.
Wow.
Yeah. which was probably one of the first ones I can remember a lot. There was like Get Fresh, which had there was always a theme. So there was like Get Fresh, which was set on a truck that was made to look like a spaceship. Then there was Ghost Train, which had an actual plot to it of they'd stolen a ghost train from the mafia and they were on broadcasting the show every week from it.
Ghost Train was my favourite, I think. I mean, Going Live is the most famous one, I would argue, but Ghost Train was definitely my favourite. And I'm glad that you've said that it was on these magazine shows. I don't remember which one it was on, but I also have the very vivid memory of Samurai Pizza Cats being one of those shows that was on the Saturday morning. So I think Trapdoor was another one.
Yeah,
some of the Marvel shows as well.
Yes, I mean, when I think it was after Motormouth, there was one called What's Up Doc that was on for a long time, which was, as you can imagine, Warner Brothers based. And from there, I think we got a lot of those cartoons because of it must have been cheaper for them to do that if the whole show was themed like it. But before that was Motormouth, which was based out of, I believe, Newcastle. A lot of them were based out of either Newcastle or Manchester. And the Samurai Pizza Cats was the show that they played during that show. And I just remember it very, very vividly because it was, as we're going to talk about, it wasn't like other cartoons. It knew it was a cartoon, which was something at that age I'd never really had seen before, I don't think.
I think for me, I remember Motormouth vaguely, and it had that very visceral logo of the big teeth. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And I remember that Samurai Pizza Cats was a thing, and it was about cats who delivered pizza, but they were samurais.
Yeah.
That's it. My memory, I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was anime as well.
It is, yeah. It is anime, and I mean, the legendary story of it was sent over to Saban, who do Power Rangers, which will probably explain a lot about the way that this was produced. And the translations weren't complete, or the English scripts weren't complete, so they just went, quick, we'll write one. So they wrote their own translation for it, which when you watch the episodes, you'll realise that, which is very meta, self-referential, bit sarcastic in places, and yeah, and again, I think that spills over into Power Rangers, where every season of Power Rangers is using footage from a Japanese show, and then they film other bits around it.
Yeah, I knew that about Power Rangers. I didn't know it about Samurai Pizza Cats. I think my strong memories about Samurai Pizza Cats aren't about what happened in the show itself. It's about what the show was. And at the time, and I think this was misguided and inaccurate, but I saw it as satire of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
and I thought it was a very cheeky show that was taking the piss. But I don't think that was actually the case, was it?
They do make a joke about it in the theme tune, which is they've got more fur than any turtle ever had. And I think that was just fortuitous timing, because it was around about the same time, like 1990, 1991, around about that era. So I think they've gone, and it was probably purchased by Saban as a competitor to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whereas in Japan, this is probably just something like that gets produced anyway. And then they've just gone, well, okay, well, this might work as a Ninja Turtles fighter, and I don't think it did that well.
No.
Elsewhere, it did well over here. I think it did a bit in America. I know that because there's some YouTubers I follow who have done like retrospectives on it, so it must have done something. But it just stuck out so much for me. In Motormouth as a whole did. There's a few things I distinctly remember. One is Samurai Pizza Cats. Two is Two Unlimited appeared on there once, doing "You're Ready for This," But I just remember at the time watching them going, no one's doing anything, they're just dancing. Because they didn't have I don't think they had the lad who did the rapping yet, or he wasn't there or something. So there was just two dancers and a keyboard player. I'm just going, I like it, but what am I watching?
Rapping is a strong word for techno.
Well, not. This is going to make me sound like a bit of a too unlimited apologist, but it was one of the first albums I ever bought on tape was No Limit
Brilliant.
album, and
Brilliant.
he actually does rap. But for
Gosh.
some reason, they just cut it out completely of all the single releases because it's not particularly good.
Oh, 90s. They were definitely a thing, weren't
Yes, they were. They very much were.
I've realised I should probably acknowledge that there isn't much of an age difference between you and me. Sometimes there is on this show, and obviously the first version of this show featured Fraser, who was significantly younger than me, and that was kind of the premise. Whereas you and I are 40, early 40s, nudging mid 40s this side.
I'm about to turn 40, so
yeah.
It's there's only about 3 years between us.
Yeah.
So I think we all roughly saw some of the same things growing up. You may have been more into. I nearly said I thought you might be more into girls and stuff by that point.
Nah. Well, I was into pretending about girls.
Yeah, but I thought, by that point, I thought you might not be watching cartoons. But, 30, I'd have probably been about 10, so you'd have probably been about 12, 13. So, yeah, that you probably be watching.
I did watch Samurai Pizza Cats, but it wasn't one that I would have chosen myself to do on the show. So it kind of fits the format in as much as I've got very vague memories of it, but not anything really other than 4 bars of the theme tune and that Turtles thing that I thought it was satire when it kind of wasn't really.
Well, that's the thing I was thinking, because you were slightly older than me, you might look at it, you might have seen it more and sort of got some more of the, I don't want to say more adult, but more meta stuff in there.
Maybe at the time, but my memory doesn't give me anything, unfortunately.
Whereas for me, it was like, look at them, look at the cats with a gun that shoots them across the sky, and it's great. Yeah.
Are you a cat person then?
I'm allergic.
Oh,
so
no.
I like them. They don't tend to like me. It depends what sort of cat it is. If it's a heavily shedding cat, then I can't really do much. I just start itching and sneezing. But I do like cats.
You know what the solution is?
Take tablets every day for the rest of your life.
That or Mr. Bigglesworth.
I've never held one of those, but I've always wanted to, because that would probably be the solution for me if I did want a cat.
So they are odd. I mean, a cat would look like that if you shaved it.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the Sphinx cats, that some of them have got like black spots. If that cat had fur, it would be black and white.
Yeah.
The pink ones would have had white fur if they weren't Sphinxes.
Right.
And this is true. If you shave a tabby cat, they have tabby skin.
I knew that. Yeah, that's adorable.
So most of the Sphinx cats would actually be pure white. There's 2 reasons why they can't go outdoors, you know. The first one is 3 reasons why they can't go outdoors. Yeah. The cold in this country would probably be unpleasant for them. But also, the obvious one is they're a valuable breed. They would just get stolen.
Yeah.
And the other one is even sadder. Because they've got no fur, they would get sunburned. You'd have to put suntan lotion on your kitty.
I didn't think of that, actually. Yeah, I should really think of that, because I'm a bald man, and whenever I have to go out in the sun, I have to put suntan lotion on my head. So I really should have thought about that for my cat. I
hate doing that. It's the worst thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it never feels like it's particularly. You don't feel particularly clean with it.
No, it just highlights your... Anyway, moving on. Samurai Pizza Cats.
Yeah.
Shooting. You said shooting out of a gun. Elaborate.
Well, with their when they go into action, when the call comes through, as with all cartoons, their base of operations transforms.
Good.
So their pizza parlor has a long gun-shaped appendage sticking out the front of it with a clock on it, and that will rise up, and the front will open, and they will be shot out of it by Francine, who is there to use another cartoon as an analogy. She's the Janine to the Ghostbusters.
Right, good.
The fun bit about Francine is whenever they have her on, and she's in every episode, she almost seems to truly resent working for them.
So like Janine, then.
Yeah, when we watch the first episode, we will see that she fires them out of the cannon to where they're supposed to be going, and she realizes that she shot them off at the wrong trajectory, and she's done it more than once. But she kind of winks to the camera that she's done it, and then they end up like flying through at least 3 buildings on their way to getting to their location.
So this seems like you've got a pretty good memory of Samurai Pizza Cats. Have you rewatched it since your childhood then?
I have done, yes. A very good friend of mine, my friend Jax, is also a big fan of Samurai Pizza Cats, and years ago I bought them, because this was before things like this got an official release. I found somebody on eBay who was selling DVDs of them all.
Amazing.
This must have been before YouTube as well, and I bought them off this person, and I ended up giving them to Jax. But then in recent years, there's been an official DVD release and an official Blu-ray release. Although the Blu-ray release always makes me laugh because on the front of it says Blu-ray SD. So it's like Blu-ray standard definition. So
what's the point of it being Blu-ray?
Well, you can fit it all on one disc because there's 52 episodes.
Bloody hell, 52 episodes. So was it one series of 52 episodes? Do you remember that? Or did it have multiple series?
52 episodes, and 2 of them, well, one of them's a clip show, which is episode 9, weirdly, is a clip show. And then the final episode is a sort of spoof, behind the actors, like where they're talking to the Pizza Cats about the show and about the making of the show and all this kind of stuff. So it's a strange one, but it's quite funny. I haven't got a copy of that Blu-ray, but I am going to get it. Just as another shout out to Jax. Jax has a Samurai Pizza Cats tattoo.
Of course she does. Brilliant. And so it's clearly a favourite of yours.
Yeah, definitely.
What is it about it that makes it a favourite of yours?
It's the irreverency, because you get a lot of cartoons from your childhood which you watch now and go, oh, this is very basic stuff. But some of them, because they were writing for kids, but they weren't talking down to them. So the show still works, because basically this is a group of writers trying to make themselves laugh while doing an English dub of a Japanese cartoon, and I think it still stands up to this day. Especially as with a lot of these Japanese cartoons, there's reusing of shots constantly. It's very Monster of the Week.
Right.
And they if they use a super-powered weapon or something, they will use the same shots, or at least they've got like 2 different variations of the same shot, but they make fun of it. And I think it's that kind of like twisting of the expectations of the cartoon that I think has made it last. I can still watch it now and chuckle because of the jokes in it.
So is it as blatant as the I have the power thing in He-Man, for example? Or does it actively mock that kind of thing?
It actively mocks that kind of thing. The He-Man thing is very similar. Like you say, they use the same framework for that. But that's lasted quite well. And I think, the idea of it has lasted quite well, but people have gone back and gone, oh, the actual episodes aren't particularly good. But that's led to things like the recent Masters of the Universe Revelations, which is on Netflix, and is really, really, really good.
That's the one by Kevin Smith, not the other one. Yeah, the one by Kevin Smith sublime, man.
Yeah.
Sublime.
I did watch some episodes of the new one, the CG one, and it's actually quite good. It is very aimed at children, but there's adult themes in there, and it's actually got a storyline. Whereas, as you and I both know, back in the day, it was all toys, toys, toys. You know, this is this is done for toys. And I think with Samurai Pizza Cats, they didn't really do that because I'm guessing some complicated rights with the Japanese company, and they just went, right, well, we can't sell toys on it. We best make it good, and then eventually, release it on home video or something, which I think they did. So
there was no merch then?
I don't believe so. There's some now, like collector's stuff you can get, but I don't believe it was. If there was, I'd have got it as a kid, and I never had any Samurai Pizza toys or anything.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I think there was probably like tie-in, like stuff they could get away with doing, like colouring books and stuff like that. But that wouldn't have bothered me. But I'd have probably gone for an action figure if one had come out.
Yeah, and they were super cute. I don't really remember any kind of anime style action figures as a kid. They were all American style.
Yeah, I mean this opened up quite a bit. I'm not a huge anime person now, but it's interesting to see where it kind of leads, because you see that kind of style, and you get, even then it's like, oh, it's Japanese, and they've dubbed it. And my sister's then partner was previously in the Merchant Navy, so he had a load of videos of anime cartoons that were dubbed. So I watched a few of those growing up as well, and this was kind of like my gateway into that. But none of them stuck like Samurai Pizza Cats did, because this was basically them messing around, and the ones I'd watched were trying to do a faithful dub. I have watched episodes of Samurai Pizza Cats in the original language, and there's a complete disconnect because it knows exactly, it's doing what it's meant to be doing, and it's taking it seriously. Whereas with the humour that was in these English dubs is what kind of made it for me. It was lightning in a bottle, basically, I think is probably the best way of putting it.
That's fascinating, because almost without exception, it's widely considered that a sub is better than a dub when it comes to foreign films, including anime.
Yeah.
But just occasionally, stuff benefits from a dub. And, it's when they put some actual effort into it, I think. And I've looked at Cyber City 0808 on this podcast a long time ago, and it wasn't actually the dub on that one. It was the fact that they rewrote the entire soundtrack for a Western audience, just made it so much better. There was nothing wrong with the Japanese soundtrack, but it kind of resonated better with me because of that.
Yeah.
But that's rare, man. That is rare.
Yeah. Like I say, they didn't do any toys or anything. It almost felt like, right, we've got this. Oh no, the scripts have turned up and they're not complete. There's even the joke in the theme song, as soon as someone finds the script, we might begin the show. And apparently that's taken from genuine directions.
Brilliant.
From the time. And I think maybe it was almost like the studio were like, let's just get it out. Let's just do it. We'll have a laugh. It'll be a fun few days, and we'll get it out. And then when it's gone out, it's gone, oh, people like it. Oh, my goodness, what are we going to do?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier that literally, other than Cute Cats, there is 4 bars of the theme tune that I remember. And it's not actually 4 bars. It's literally 4 words. And that is, it's 3 words. Samurai Pizza Cats. And that's it.
Yes.
And I couldn't sing any more of the theme tune for you, but that theme just, I don't know why that stuck in my head, because I don't remember anything else about it other than it was fun and it was on Saturday morning TV. So I'm really, really excited about this, because I think I'm actually going to get floods of memories come back to me.
I think when you hear the full theme tune, you will have basically a nostalgia quake.
Brilliant. Because I'm not always excited about people's picks on this, I'll be honest with you. Whereas I am genuinely excited about this. When you said Samurai Pizza Cats, I was like, I remember nothing of that, but I remember I liked it.
Yeah.
So should we watch some Samurai Pizza Cats?
Let's get watching.
So we have just watched 2 episodes of Samurai Pizza Cats. There's only 1 season, so episode 1 we watched is called Stop Dragon, My Cat Around, and episode 4, The Great Golden Cluck. So Carl, was it as good as you remember?
Yes, it was. I think it's a little behind the curtain, but we actually watched them with our mics still on, so we could hear each other's reactions, and there were times when we both chuckled at what was going on.
Yeah. We did it very crudely. It wasn't a watch party. We just went 3, 2, 1, play.
Yeah. But I was interested in hearing your reaction to watching them again after so long, and it was good. Yeah, it still stands up. There were points where I was absolutely beaming at the silliness of it. And I still really enjoy it. And as I said to you before we came back on, I'm probably going to wind up watching the rest of the series again, which I've not watched them from all the way through from start to finish in a very long time. So I'm probably going to do that at some point.
I think in a similar vein to Reboot last month, I enjoyed it as much, maybe a little more than I expected. And it's the kind of thing that I probably will dip back into occasionally. I don't think I'm going to do a massive binge like it sounds like you're going to, but I enjoyed it enough that I would definitely watch this again.
Oh, yeah. So we watched 2 very early episodes, but it does the story does expand a bit as it goes on. I mean, it would which I don't think a lot of cartoons of the day did. It's very Monster of the Week. And these are very Monster of the Week as well. And we both mentioned how there's a lot of reusing of animation for certain bits. But there are like plot points which do get expanded on as the series progresses.
To be fair, there was some continuity in as much as, there was still the romantic angle. What was the name? Lucille of the character that the both of the cats were chasing.
That's one of the things that gets expanded is as time goes on, it becomes more of a thing between Speedy and Polly rather than Lucille, and it's quite funny because it is treated in like just one episode she realizes that she likes him, and it's like, oh no, she's really annoyed, and then it kind of goes from there.
That works though, because you can see how Polly would be frustrated. She was like, that she likes someone who's a bit of a pain. I think my partner's a bit like that. He doesn't really quite understand why he likes me, but he does. And sometimes he's like, why? He's a weirdo.
It's good. And there's bits where they sort of it gets established more like how their powers work and things like that. And as you go into the series more, there's a lot of 2-parters.
Okay.
Yeah, there's ones where all their weaponry gets disabled because they realise the Big Cheese realises that they're solar powered, so he blocks out the sun, and they have to go and find somebody to build them new armor that they can use. And as the series progresses, there's the main henchman of the main villain. The villain's called the Big Cheese, and his main henchman is called Bad Bird. But as the show goes on, Bad Bird gets more and more kind of, do I want to be bad? And then there's a whole episode where he teams up. He decides he doesn't want to do it anymore. And he and Speedy become friends. Because it's kind of teased over the episodes they've got more in common than you think. And they become friends and they try and take down the Big Cheese. And then it goes to a point where Bad Bird decides, no, I do want to be bad, but I'm going to be bad on my own terms. So he breaks away and it turns into like a 3-way battle. And yeah, so it does actually, against what a lot of cartoons did at the time, like your He-Mans and stuff like that, it did expand on those kind of things.
Yeah, I think, if we look at the 2 episodes separately, but I can see that the continuity was already being kind of nudged at just from the romantic angle that we talked about. But I want to talk about the theme tune.
Yes.
I got the notes right of Samurai Pizza Cats, but I feel, I don't know about you, but for a 20-minute show, 90 seconds for a theme tune is a bit naughty.
But what a theme tune, though, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still in my head like 20 years later, 30 years later, almost, and I can still sing it, and I probably do sing it to myself. It's one that's stuck in my head.
It was everything I expected from what you'd said about it and more. And what I did like and did make me smile was that obviously Japanese footage, but on the Samurai Pizza Cats, it was a completely different font, a completely different colour background, and it was just like the Americans dumped this in here very briefly for the theme tune, and it was so obvious because it was English, and obviously the original would have been in Japanese that you couldn't read. And it was really, really obvious and glaring, but I wonder whether it would have been at the time.
I don't think it was. At the time, even though when I was young, I could still tell that this was blatantly dubbed together and cut up and stuff like that. But I don't think it was that noticeable.
I had no clue at the time
No.
whatsoever that it was dubbed, it was Japanese, it was anything other than a fun kids' TV show. But I was quite naive as a kid.
Yeah.
Still am.
It's fun because, I mean, even now, if you are, I'm just looking online because as well as the English dubs, there is the original with subtitles on YouTube as well for Kyoto Ninden Tiandi or Samurai Pizza Cat. And even then, the titles of the episodes are still things like Secret Ninja Group, Niyaki Dispatch, or the town is full of sushi, Panic. What's the one? The one we just watched in English was The Great Golden Cluck.
Yeah.
But on the Japanese one, it's have a worry, a card will solve it. So there's still that level. There's still that level of humour in the whole thing.
The Japanese are so literal, aren't they?
Yes, they are. But it's there's still a lot of humour there because you wouldn't be able to do it if the animation didn't match with a lot of what they're doing. But the Americans did definitely add a lot in terms of the humour because there's a lot of things like Call My Agent. There must have been a Call My Agent joke at least twice in every episode.
And, I think the Americans really did do a very good job of westernizing it, but somehow keeping, I think, a dryness from the Japanese sense of humour as well. That was actually even better than I'd expected because, let's be honest, Power Rangers was crude. I don't feel like this was as crude as Power Rangers.
No. The fact that we can watch it now and still chuckle, like I can watch an old Power Rangers episode and be like, yep, that was a Power Rangers episode. But with this, I can still watch it. Because at the end of each episode, as with a lot of cartoons, it showed a preview of next week's episode. And after we watched the second one, I was like, oh, I remember that one when I was watching the thing. So the fact that these have stuck in my head that much over time is incredible, really, considering how much cartoons and stuff like that I watched growing up, and how a lot of it, especially when we've been talking about stuff for Shipwrecked and Comatose. I recently dug out a couple episodes of Time Busters because it's got there was some limp connection to Red Dwarf that we were looking at.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I remember this. I watched loads of these, but that had to be unearthed. But with Samurai Pizza Cat, it's there, and I can go, oh, I remember that one. I remember that one, and it's probably it must be, without sort of like saying, I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but it's probably one of my favourite cartoons of all time.
Yeah, I never got into that, but I know it's very well loved.
I'm sure it's bigger than what I think it was, but if you're in the UK and you watched Motormouth on a Saturday morning, it was almost like Our Little Thing that you've still got to this day. It's like, oh, I watched Samurai Pizza Cat. Oh, you watched that? Oh, I didn't think anybody watched that. I'm sure a lot of people did, but yeah. it's just this thing of like, oh, I saw something cool, because it wasn't like a lot of the cartoons in the day were like, hey kids, don't forget there's a message at the end of this, and blah de blah de blah. Like I remember seeing an
Yeah.
episode of He-Man where it's like, put oily rags in the correct bin, otherwise it could cause a fire. It's like, I don't care about that, age 10. On
Yeah.
this one, it's just like, it's just irreverent and out there.
Well, I think from the very start, the meta element was there from the very first narration before you'd even met a character.
Yeah.
See what I did there? Meta character?
Oh.
That wasn't deliberate. And the whole show was just sarcasm, puns, and stuff on rhymes, but there was still the occasional, was this gag for the parents? Because, I'm sorry, stop talking politics was a hell of a line.
Yeah, there was a line about healthcare at one point, leaving people penniless, and at one point, this is probably the biggest part of. I know you would talk about 90s icon stuff. I don't know if I'm guessing it is. He called somebody a pinko at one point.
What's a pinko?
Communist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess there's much worse than that.
Yeah, but there was just that thing as well. Just it's very. There's jokes in there for the right. The writers have gone like, we can slip this by, because normally the jokes about stuff like that come at action moments. If you know, so kids are not paying attention. They're watching the action, like because a lot of people will be sitting with their kids as they watch it. So they'll be like, healthcare joke. There was a joke there like, oh, if we need somebody to go become invisible, we'll make them vice president.
That was clever.
That was a good gag, and it was like, okay, that's pretty funny. But as a kid, not a clue. It's the stop talking politics bit. It's watching it today. It's like, that's really funny, but at the time, it's like, I would have no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah, and I think as I've done more and more of these episodes, kids' telly is much more sophisticated than I ever realised, and it keeps getting proven.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say that it doesn't go as far as 90s ick, but the female characters border on the stereotype and certainly don't pass the Bechdel test.
No. Lucille especially.
Yeah.
I think if we watched more episodes, you'd see some of the female characters become a bit more developed, especially Polly, Francine, and Princess Vi, who we don't really meet in this one. Mm-hmm. She turns up and tells one joke, which is a massive pun, but she turns up in other episodes, and basically she is almost like a parody of a princess in that she doesn't fully understand any danger whatsoever. In the episode that follows the one we watched, that we saw a brief snippet of, they basically get chased around the catacombs of the castle by a robot monster, and she thinks everything is hilarious fun.
Right. I like that kind of character. They're a lot of fun.
Well, like there's a point where they fall down like a sewage pipe, and Speedy's just an absolute mess. He's like falling down on his face and he's panicking, and he lands like on his head when they get dropped out of the thing, and Princess Vi lands on top of him in a perfect sitting position, loving it like she's been on the greatest log flume you've ever been on.
Brilliant.
Also, when you see more of the characters in it, she's like the princess, but then her father is Emperor Fred, who I think is a bit of I can't remember which king it was, but Blackadder parodied him and said, oh, everybody thinks I'm mad, and say penguin at the end of every sentence. I can't remember which one it was, but he's like that, but he's no idea what's going on, and he's completely insane.
Right.
And so she's actually the actual power behind the throne, but she just happens to be a very excitable child. It's quite fun.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think going back to Polly, the fact that there's some character development is good, because you couldn't really get any worse than moody, shouty, grumpy woman, and her weapons are love heart shuriken.
Yeah. They interact more, but it turns into, as the episodes go on, the big whole thing is that Speedy and Guido are idiots. and
Yes.
they kind of have to put up with them. There's episodes where, I think there's multiple episodes where Polly and Lucille break away to do something else. There's one in the, I think it's the one that follows the Great Golden Cluck, where they go off to become pop singers.
Brilliant.
And they do really, really well. But the pun on that is, and this is just an American joke I can imagine, they're the Pointless Sisters.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But they find out that they're being used to, their music's hypnotizing people to buy things, which is a bit of a satire in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Everybody gets something. I think the one who probably gets the least to do is actually Guido.
But he does get the best weapon, because who doesn't want a brolly as a weapon?
Yeah, the samurai sunspot umbrella. There's a little bit of the 66 Batman in how many things have got samurai in front of it.
I think that's quite deliberate.
Yeah, and the magical
It's definitely a
sword,
dig.
which I love. I was saying to you as we were watching it, I think that I stole a bit of the narrator's voice for whenever I do my cheesy radio voices. And if I've not pulled it off wholesale, it's definitely an influence on it, because it's that and Danger Mouse, the parallels between that and Danger Mouse, and why I love them both. I think the fact they've got a narrator is probably a big part of that.
Wasn't it Del Boy who was the narrator for Danger Mouse?
Was he the narrator? I mean, he was a load of voice. Yes, he was. He was Danger Mouse, and he was the narrator. I don't know if you ever saw the rebooted Danger Mouse.
It wasn't David Jason, was it?
No, it was Alexander Armstrong.
Okay.
There's Danger Mouse, but the narrator was Dave Lamb, who's the guy who does the voice for Come Dine With Me.
Brilliant. Of course. Why not?
Yeah, if you get a chance to watch that, anybody out there, do watch it, because as I discovered, the old Danger Mouse doesn't hold up that well.
Really?
Yeah, it's not in terms of the comedy, but the animation's awful. But the new one's really good. And there's quite a few people in it you didn't expect, like John Oliver's in it.
Good grief.
And Kevin Eldon is Penfold. It's quite interesting. It's a good show. I think they stopped making it, but it's really good.
I did spot something that I think I'm massively nitpicking, but it did annoy me, that the big gun that shot the Samurai Pizza Cats was a 6-shooter.
Yeah.
They went as far as loading the barrels. But when they shot them out, the barrel didn't turn.
Didn't it?
No.
Oh,
it did not.
It did.
And it really annoyed me.
Yeah.
The barrel didn't turn. And it was that stock footage you were talking about that they used every episode, and every episode the barrel doesn't turn by the looks of things.
Yeah, it's the two we watched. There's a short version and a long version of that. There's one where they actually land in the bullets that go in the gun, and then there's one where they skip that bit altogether and just go straight to sliding down the pizza ovens, which isn't particularly a safe message, as they jump in pizza ovens to go to their secret launch platform.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I don't know, I didn't realise it didn't turn. I think there's actually a chamber there, isn't there? Yeah, but it doesn't turn.
Yeah, it doesn't turn.
Yeah. I like the fact there's a gag in there where, because Francine has to make the announcement that they're about to fire, and she asks them to vote on proposition something or other, which is a noise pollution proposition.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really funny.
And the same mother and child complain about the Samurai Pizza Cats in each episode as well.
They do. I think they actually get a story at one point.
Brilliant.
But yeah, they're there every episode watching them fly away, and they make some comment about it. I think at one point they actually make reference to they're always there when they fly. Yeah, I've got to watch it all again. I want to watch it all again now because of this.
Yeah. It's interesting that this is by Saban, because it feels almost similar in structure to a lot of Power Rangers. The kind of storyline, stock footage of the good guys getting ready, easy win for the good guys.
Yeah.
It felt a lot like Power Rangers.
Yeah, they do turn up. I mean, there's a couple of episodes where they use a weapon, a gun type thing, and it's very similar to when the Power Rangers would combine their weaponry into a cannon. I don't know if you remember that. but they do that. And also there's the Pizza Cats rescue team.
Yes.
Who I wanted to make sure I found an episode with at least one of them in it, because for some reason, they were always one of my favourite parts. It's like, oh, I remember the rescue team's coming. There's 4 of them. The one we saw today was General Catton.
Nice.
Who's a big, large cat with 2 cannons on his shoulders. But there's also, this is the thing, the main 3 Pizza Cats don't have any specifically themed skill sets, I don't think, not as specific as these guys. But the rescue team, General Catton's got 2 cannons on his shoulders. Spritz T Cat is a water-based cat weapons. There's Meowsma O'Toole, who's got drills, and Batcat, who's a cat with wings.
Brilliant.
And I think it gets more and more that they get called in. There's one episode in the future where they ask if they can take over because they always have to come and rescue them. And they while they're off training, the rescue team take over, but they find out that as the actual full-time team, they're rubbish. They're just really good at rescuing.
Brilliant. And then I really did like the cultural references in the second episode. There weren't any in the first, but the cultural references were so dated and so early 90s.
Yeah.
And stuff like that is really only when you realise how dated these things are. The stop talking politics gag earlier, that was fine.
Yeah.
But, some of the cultural references about Sonny and Cher, it's like kids wouldn't get that today.
No, they wouldn't. And I don't think animators and cartoon makers would try and put those in to make it more... No. I can imagine timeless indication and stuff like that. Yeah, timeless. But this has worked. I mean, yes, I'm presuming a lot of the market for this now is retro sort of things. But I was looking at sort of how it got released. This got released on Amazon Prime at one point, and now it's on. We can't get it in this country, sadly, but it's on Tubi, where seemingly a lot of programs seem to go. And it's a free service in America, but we can't get it over here because of licensing laws. But it seems like a lot of series where you go, wonder whatever happened to that. It's on Tubi.
Right. I think it might be on Crunchyroll over here. Maybe.
It is on Crunchyroll over here as well. I'm not sure if it's the dub or the sub version, but both versions are on YouTube as well. Not that I'm saying go and watch an illegal upload of it, but if you do want to watch it, it is there.
I'm not going to have another conversation about access to stuff, but I do try not to watch stuff illegally. What another thing about the gags, though, was that, again, only in the second episode we watched, episode 4, there were a couple of very American-centric gags. The previously mentioned healthcare, because, we have the NHS here, but also a comment about public service television.
Yes, telling Big Bird to go back to public service television.
Yeah, public broadcasting, PBSs and stuff. And I would not have got that last year. In fact, I've only very recently got that gag because I spoke to an American about PBSs. And I think it's one of those gags that to Americans, everyone gets it, but it's so obscure to any other country, but they don't realise,
Yeah. I think I got it at the time. I got that he was basically somebody mistakes the golden cluck for Big Bird without saying Big Bird. So Jim Henson Workshop doesn't sue him. But I think I got same with things like the politics gag. You kind of know that they're arguing or what they're doing, but you're not focusing on the detail that much because you're caught up in everything else, if you know what I mean. It's weird, but I think that's what a lot of things, especially a lot of the cartoons where it's like, oh, there's jokes for the kids as well as the adults.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see with a lot of these cartoons that come back and are aimed more at that audience, like with the He-Man, with the They've just, like the Harley Quinn one that's on HBO, they've just announced
Yes.
a Scooby-Doo one called Velma, which is going to be in the same ilk. It's going to be an adult Scooby-Doo
Brilliant.
cartoon. It would be interesting to see this brought back, but with more aim towards that audience again. It would be. I'd be interested to see it. It probably would be nowhere near as good, but it would be interesting to see them try and do it again.
Yeah, I think it would be an odd choice. I'm not sure it has the same following as He-Man, though.
No, but I mean, in Japan, they do tend to bring these franchises back. One I used to watch was, I can't remember what the translation is, but it was called Time Fighters. Again, another brilliant theme tune in that. If I ever find it, I'll send it to you. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I found out a few years ago they brought it back with modern day animation, and it looked really good. But there wasn't an English dub. And I can imagine, somewhere at some point, someone in Japan's gone, do you want to try bringing back the Pizza Cats? And they've gone, maybe not now, but possibly. I say it's been 30 years, so it could come back for like a redo, because it all comes around again eventually.
I mean, I'd be very, very interested to see how that would be handled. Would it be done in the kind of Power Rangers style that they did Samurai Pizza Cats, or would it be a more faithful translation the second time around?
It'd be very interesting to see. I mean, it's like, I mean, I'm guessing you're up for this X-Men 97 that's coming out.
So excited.
Yeah. The fact that they're like, we're staying loyal to it, it's following the continuity of the previous one. I think for this, if they tried it with this, they'd probably do the same. They'd probably update the animation, because it'd probably be harder to recreate this than it is to do new animation.
Yeah.
But I think it would all have something to do with because as far as I'm aware, a lot of the writers on this are still alive and still working. So it would be interesting to like bring them all back and get them to do like a mini run for Netflix or something. Like, oh, they made a new one. Oh, did you send us the script? Yeah. Well, we'll bin that and we'll just do what we did the first time.
Yeah. That I think I'd prefer to see that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. If you got Crunchyroll or anything like that, I highly recommend going out there and watching it, because it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
I would agree too. Carl, it's been a joy talking about something that is so very silly and surprisingly intelligent for a kid's telly show. So thank you for bringing Samurai Pizza Cats on the show.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Mark. Thank you.
Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at allmylinks.com/Mr. Carl, and it's the unabbreviated MISTER, where you can keep up with all like my podcast appearances. You've got my socials on there, including things like I'm on TikTok now a little bit. Just I tit about on there sometimes. And yeah,
I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, I'm on there. I'm about to hit 100 followers, which isn't much in the long term, but it's quite cool for me. Although I'm pretty sure a load of them are Russian bots. But apart from that, I enjoy it. And I will be hopefully going. I think I've mentioned it on another podcast, but I will hopefully be confirming a new podcast project soon.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Carl. If you're looking for me, it's at Mark Adams HC on Twitter and Instagram. And look at my other podcasts too. Shipwrecked and Comatose, where Carl is a regular guest host. That's a podcast about Red Dwarf. And Chucky Vision, which is a podcast about the Child's Play and the Chucky franchise. So thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Right in the Childhood. See you next month. Right in the Childhood is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This podcast network. You can follow the show on Twitter at RITCpod. The show's creators were Mark Adams and Fraser Summers. show's host is me, Mark Adams. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MarkAdamsHC. The show's logo was created by Bryan, and the theme tune was composed and performed by Colin Jackson Brown. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed being hit.
Hello, and this is Chucky Vision on the We Made This Network, the podcast for all things Chucky. I'm Dev Elson.
And I'm Mark Adams. We're two queer podcasters who love bloody horror,
Camp comedy, gay romance,
and referencing icons like Freddy, Jason, and Britney.
The Chucky films and new TV show deliver all of that, and there is still so much more to cover.
So if you want to play, find Chucky Vision on Twitter at Chucky Vision and on all good podcast providers.
And yes, the title is a Chuckle Vision pun.
Because why not?
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast Network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at We Made This Pod.